It is done. I have done it. I have created my VFL team for Stage 2. This is what we are starting off with, and I'm going to explain the team as, we go through them. And yeah, just basically talk you through my ideas, my strategies, and what went into ultimately making this decision. Now, of course, we know, if you've been kind of following here, you'll know that obviously Pacific players are going to be in high demand because, of course, they play 2 games first off. So most people, of course, are going to start off with 2 Pacific players like so because, these are the games that they're playing. And when you look at these games, I think what's interesting about this, and I'm sure some of you will have similar teams, some of you will have very different teams, because basically it comes down to who do you think is going to do well in Pacific in week 1, right? And there might be some different answers to that because I don't think there is too many clear options of like this team will definitely win both their games. In fact, I would argue there isn't anyone who I would say has like an above 90% chance, like I feel good, or even above 80% chance of like they're gonna win both these games, right? There isn't like a Paper X versus DFM twice, right? Paper X have got T1 in their first game, they might lose that game, right? Gen G have got DRX. DRX have got Gen G, RRQ have got Gen G, right? Like, it's not going to be easy for any of the top teams to guarantee go 2-0. But let me talk you through, you can see my pick'ems here, which is a bit of a clue as to some of the players that I picked. The first one is Talon, right? And I've gone double Talon. Why have I gone double Talon? Well, I picked them for both these games, and I think they should at least win one of those games, right? I think it's unlikely that they go 0-2 in those games, and I kind of feel pretty good about Talon overall. And I think that they should be a pretty decent team. But it's not only this week. In the next week, they also play DFM. Right? So I've gone for double Talon because I think they should do all right week 1. And I favor them over DFM as well. And then honestly, I'm looking to get rid of Talon after that. Now, the 2 Talon players that I went for ultimately was Primi and Killua. The reason I went for Primi is because I think, his numbers are quite a bit better than the rest of the Talon players. Obviously, he's going to be set up for success. He's going to carry certain maps, right? And I'm hoping will do pretty well for Talon overall. And then Killua, I think, was just kind of probably the next best for Talon, although it was pretty close, and really you could pick any of the other Talon players and you might end up being right. I've gone for Killua here. I could have gone for anyone because it is a wild card, but as I say, after that DFM game, where honestly I'll probably IGL Primi in that week as well against DFM if DFM don't look too good, after that week they'll probably be gone. Right, they'll start to play some tougher games, and I'll probably ship both of those players out for some other players that I like for that week and beyond. The next team that I doubled up on was Paper Rex because, hey, it's Paper Rex, and I'd like that I can kind of just keep them in here. Now, what's interesting about Paper Rex is that I'm probably going to be keeping Paper Rex up until maybe week 3, right? I'm going to wait for them to play these first 2 games. Tough one against T1, perhaps. Should beat DFM. They then come and play against Boom here. Should be favored for that one, you would think. Then Zeta. I'm feeling good about that one. And then I'm thinking get rid for this Talon game, right? Now, maybe Talon don't look so good, but either way, I feel like I'm likely to get rid of Paper Rex here if Talon do look like a decent team. Now, picking between the Paper Rex players, I think is quite hard, but I think ultimately I just went for the value of Forsaken, obviously going crazy, and as you see, I've IGL'd him here, and something as a duelist. I'm just hoping. Something was their lowest scoring player during Stage 1. And I also picked him for Toronto, and he didn't have a great Toronto. So he has let me down sometimes here. But I think the price is just there, even though I'm the one setting the prices. And there's a reason that his price is this, right? And I think he will be a pretty popular pick because this is his price. But the reason that this is his price is because he hasn't done so well thus far. Now, the other team that I doubled up on was Gen G, and I talked about this in my previous video as well about why I like Gen G, despite the fact that their games are actually pretty tough on paper, right? And the reason for that is because you can keep these Gen G players for the entire stage, right? You can feel good about Gen G here, and to be honest, if you wanted to go texture, I think that is a perfectly reasonable thing to do, because you can probably just IGL him for the entire game if you wanted to, right? Like, he's going to play 2 games this week. I have picked Gen G to win both of them. Maybe they won't. But even so, after that, they play Global, then they play Secret, then they play Nongshim, right? So they're getting their 2 games, their 2 more difficult games, you would say here, out of the way in a double week. So they're still going to be okay. Even if they lose one of those games, they're still going to do decently well, right? In terms of the overall week. And then they've got 3 really favorable games. Great. That's exactly what you want. right? That is exactly what you want, because you're going to get a good score in week 1, a good score in week 2, 3, and 4. Probably, hopefully, if Gen G are good, which obviously we've seen that they should be. So that's why I went double Gen G. And I ultimately went with Foxy9 and Munchkin. Now, again, this is where I could have gone for texture, to be honest. And looking back on it now, maybe honestly, I should have gone for texture. Thinking about it. Actually, it's not too late for me to do so. So maybe I'll wake up tomorrow and put texture in there. You know, maybe I'll change Primmy to, you know, like someone else here from Talon, I guess. A Talon Sentinel, who's that? Cruz. You know, change Foxy to Cruz, go in for texture. Honestly, that might be actually okay. Now that I'm thinking about that, that might actually be the play. But either way, yeah, I'm just kind of, I like double Gen G, and I think Munchkin, for price-wise, again, Munchkin is like an underrated, I think, because he does get more points than you would think in VFL. He does take quite a lot of fights, but Foxy's kind of the GOAT at that, to be honest. That's why he is priced pretty highly, because he does take a lot of fights. Even if he doesn't win them all, he does take a lot of fights, and that ultimately is what you want for VFL. Okay, so I always knew that I wanted 3 players from those teams, essentially, because it gives me a pretty clear plan of what I'm going to do, when I'm going to get rid of them, you know, and hopefully that plan comes about. It might not, though. For the rest of my team, in terms of what I was thinking here, and again, maybe I'll come back tomorrow, and maybe that will be texture instead of Primmy, but for now, the rest of the team, let's talk about it. So, Mitch plays against Furia this week 1, right? And in general, I just like Cloud9. And I like Mitch as another one of those players, kind of similar to Munchkin, that you might not think of as like a high fragger, but actually in terms of like fragging and VFL points in stage 1, Mitch actually did better than you probably would have thought, right? He was actually, his ADR numbers and his average kills around and stuff like that are actually very similar to Vic, right? And in your mind, you might be like, oh, Vic played an incredible stage 1, which he did, but actually his damage numbers aren't that much higher than Mitch's. So I think that Mitch, therefore, you know, was kind of good value here overall as an initiator. And to be honest, Mitch, the reason he's in the name here of Mitch Ado About Something is because he's probably going to be in the team every single week. Because when I'm thinking about who I'm going to change out, most likely, it's not Mitch. And I'm basically just praying that Cloud9, and he in particular, does pretty well. So yeah, Mitch, I need a big time from you. In terms of some of the other players, this is where I struggled with a bit more in terms of who I wanted to go for. And ultimately, I went for Envy and Persia here. Again, obviously wanting kind of the Pacific players, right? We want as many Pacific players as we kind of can get in this first week, right? That's ideal. Ultimately, what I've ended up with 8 of them here, right? Obviously, yeah, that's fine. That's good. And the reason I've gone for Envy is his numbers from stage 1 are just so ridiculous. And I think even if Team Secret aren't that good, he still should put up decent numbers. And in fact, again, he's probably a player like Team Secret. If you look at their schedule, they play against Nongshim and Global this week, right? Those are their 2 easy games. I mean, if they can't win either of those games, they just have no hope. And I'm probably going to swap out Envy after this week, because after this, they then play DRX, they then play Gen G, and they then play RRQ. Right, so not feeling great about that after the fact, right? If Secret are going to win games, it's going to be this week, right? And so that's why I've gone with Envy, because this should be the time to really go in for Team Secret. And then really I was kind of left with a couple choices here for this last one. Ultimately ended up deciding to go for Persia here. And yeah, that was basically just a choice of, you know, looking at the players at that price. He was the last player I added to the team in terms of, you know, basically just looking at it and going, he's probably the best option available left to me, you know, that was a Pacific player as well. And so, yeah, what will probably happen for me this first week is I'll probably get rid of Envy and Persia and swap them to 2 non-Pacific players who I like. And I should have a decent amount of money. They're both wildcard slots as well. So that's giving me, you know, plenty of flexibility to find, you know, decent players, you know, with enough, you know, capital essentially to find some decent players, hopefully, as well. So I like where I'm at there for week 1. I've got 2, you know, just 2 players who probably aren't going to play here, and Alizera and Art. I needed a Sentinel just because the way my team was constructed. I just didn't have another Sentinel, and Alizera was the cheapest Sentinel, and then I went Art as a kind of another bench warmer there. This is why Mitch is going to be pretty important to this, because he is probably going to play every single week. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting one just there. But yeah, plan is Envy Persia gone week 1. Week 2, after week 2, get rid of the Talon players. After week 3, get rid of the Paper Rex players. And after week 4, get rid of the Gen G players. And, you know, kind of slowly get rid of all these Pacific players until eventually we are left with a non-Pacific team for week 5.